Hi, my name is Irene. Today I want to talk about my December reading, which was mostly devoted to Agatha Runaway, I think, marathon or something like that. Agatha reading marathon, and also Cloak and Dagger Christmas. Now I haven't finished any prompts or something like that because the whole family got COVID. And first, while you think, yes, you would get COVID and I would lay and just read. But it was a nasty. I have really high fever and terrible chills. I was not able to read a lot. And also, after I became a little bit, tiny bit better, one after another, all family members became sick. And when you are a mom in the family, I was the second one, I think, to become sick, and my kids were still not well. So it doesn't work like that you are sick and you can lay down and read books. And so I finished 4 books, and I'm in the middle of 5th one. I'll tell you about them. First, I started the month with Agatha Christie, A Very Elusive Woman by Lucy Worsley. I have it in Audible, so I listened to it reading by Lucy Worsley herself. Now I would prefer to read it in paper because there would be, I think, photographs. And also, Lucy Worsley is not my favorite type of narrator. She's rather aggressive in her intonations. She's very, very energetic. I prefer more gentle narration, but still it's always interesting to listen to the author reading his book herself in this. I like the book very much. I gave it 5 stars. I really think that now this is my second Lucy Worsley that I've read. I've read biography of Jane Austen, and also I've read autobiography by Agatha Christie before. If I would like to choose one book to read about Agatha Christie, I would prefer autobiography. There is more humor in it. The writing is much better. But Lucy Worsley has something that Agatha Christie lacked, and it's the point of view, like above. Now she understands the contexts more. She understands. She can has this above glance on the time period, on another people in the same time period, and it makes her observations more valuable, I think, than Agatha's point of view from inside of the time period. But also, Lucy Worsley often tells us that Agatha was not very honest in her autobiography, and of course it can be. It's her right to write a book as well as she can. And Lucy Worsley tells us that Agatha wrote this character, Agatha Christie, and she wrote a book about this character, not about a real person. Also, if you are really interested in Agatha Christie's disappearance in 1926, I think, there is the whole section of Lucy Worsley's book about this disappearance, and there is a lot of information, evidence and theories, and how different people think, what different people thinks about this. So I think you may prefer this book, but also I think that both are very interesting and valuable. And Lucy Worsley is very she has empathy for Agatha Christie, and she likes her hearing about whom she is talking. And I think it makes this book very surprisingly gentle. What I lack in this book was some kind of analysis of Agatha Christie's books and Agatha Christie's writing. It's her biography. It's about her life. It's not about her books and about her writing styles, how she used some clues or something. Though I need to say that there are some spoilers, mostly to the Roger Ackroyd Then there were None and Murder in the Orient Express. Everything else I think is without spoilers, but if you haven't read A Murder of Roger Ackroyd and you want to do it before reading this book, because you will be spoiled in the first quarter of the Agatha Christie and Elusive Woman. I like this book. I enjoyed it very much. I read it mostly before COVID. Maybe that's why I enjoyed it more than anything else I read this month. But I really liked it. And now I am closely looking at Lucy Worsley, another book, The Art of the English Murder, from Jack the Ripper and Sherlock Holmes to Agatha Christie and Alfred Hitchcock, because yes, I want to read more of this author and I'm interested in her point of view, especially not on the person but on the concept of murder and murder mystery writing. So yeah, highly recommend Agatha Christie and Elusive Woman by Lucy Worsley. Then I had this project in my head that I wanted to read about Miss Marple, and I've read, this is the book of complete short stories, but I've read from the 13 Problems. So I've read all 13 short stories from the 13 Problems short story collection. And then I wanted to read new Miss Marple short story collection written, in different voices from different authors, nowadays authors, like Lucy Foley and Ruth Ware and someone else. I don't remember. There is a huge book. But I get the COVID on the second short story here. So actually it was a good luck, because I managed to read like one short story a day, and that was it. Even when I have very high fever, like 104, 104 and a half, I managed still to read one short story. It was a lot for me, but I still could do it. I can't say now that I enjoyed these short stories very much. First, I am not a big fan of short stories, but I enjoy them sometimes. But I wanted to read this collection to remember Miss Marple, because I haven't reread Miss Marple books for many years. And I can't say there is a lot of Miss Marple in here. Each short story is one person in this close circle of friends, of Miss Marple's nephew friends mostly, who are gathered around the fire and telling their some mysteries from their past. And then they had to, to get to the answer. So it's like a game. And Miss Marple get it every time. First, this consistency just drove me crazy. I wanted anyone to say anything else clever, but it was only Miss Marple who did all the clues and all, the sleuthing. So it was a little bit off for me. But also, there was not much Miss Marple character in this. She had these few lines, maybe a paragraph at the end, when she is like, oh, but I think it was like that and that. And then the person, oh, Miss Marple, you got it right again. And that's it, that's the end. There was two, I think, short stories where Miss Marple was telling herself, and it was more of her, and I enjoyed those more than others. Though I do think that all of them were clever and were from the more country life, and it was very pleasant read. I gave it maybe 3.5 stars, which actually for me is very high for short story collection. I really look forward to read from this another Miss Marple book, but I haven't started it yet. This was my second December read. Then my fourth December read was a big win. and it ended up being in my top 10 best books of the year. This is Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. Now, this is an older book, so I guess most of you have read it and know what it's all about. I haven't read any Anthony Horowitz, and now I do think that if all his works are like this or close to it, he may be my new favorite author, but I need to read a little bit more to understand it in full. So this is very clever and very hard to describe book. We start to know an editor named Susan Ryland. And at the beginning of the book, she sits down to read this novel that was given, new novel, that was given to her by their most famous author in their publishing house, named Ellen Conway. And then this storyline paused, and we begin to read the book with her, but without her comments, just another book. It's like from the maybe third page of this tome. So we read a book about Detective Atticus Punt and his last case, because he now knows that he has a terminal cancer and this will be his last case, and he is working on it. It takes place in a small village in Devonshire where this manor house, and a man in this house was beheaded by a sword from the suit of armor in his manor. There is the whole bunch of suspects, and we hear from all of them at the beginning of the novel. So we hear their point of view before the death of this man. And there is another death also of his servant. It really looks like you are reading a script to the Midsummer Murders. It's very close in vibe to that. Again, we have a lot of people doing their stuff, having their feelings, and then the gruesome murder happens. And then we have an inspector coming and solving the case. But there is one thing. There is no ending to this story. And this editor who is reading it aside us, Susan Ryland, she is very frustrated, as well as we are, because we want to know who is the murderer, and she wants the same. And then she went to her publishing house, and they tell her that Alan Conway, the author of this novel, was found dead. And he sent a suicidal note about he has a terminal cancer and he wants to end his life. And then she began to try to find the last chapter of that book, the ending. And then began another sleuthing, another circle of suspects. But also what is interesting, she understands that Alan Conway, he took inspiration for his novel from the real life. So two deaths and two sleuthing experiences began to blend, because she in her head is like, oh, this guy is such and such in the book, but in the book he has such and such secret, so maybe this guy in real life has the same secret or another secret, or something. And I actually find the ending of both novels, because at the end she would found last chapters, very satisfactory. So there are two separate mysteries with very satisfactory endings. And also there are two sleuths, Atticus Punt, who is like Armand Gamache. She is very gentle, he is very noble, he is very sensitive man. And also there is Susan Ryland in real life, not in this novel, not in the novel, who is not very pleasant. She doesn't like lots of people. She definitely never liked Ellen Conway, and she's rather harsh, and she smokes, and she's not the best person in the world. And so actually even if you prefer like both, or a good person being a sleuth, or a bad person, but not bad, but not that good, you can choose. And there are like 2 mysteries for the price of 1. And also it's all blends in such an interesting circle. I like this book very much, and yeah, I am looking forward to read more of this author. I think it's very clever, and also it's very humorous. Not like there is a lot of humor in the book, but the way it was written, it's a huge nod to people who enjoy mysteries in general, and know mysteries, and read lots of mysteries, and understands what author is doing here. This is a brilliant book, and I really liked that. I'm glad that I read it. 5 stars, definitely 5 stars. And also highly recommend audiobook. I read this, but also I listened for the audiobook from my library, and they have separate narrators, different narrators for the Susan Ryland's storyline, and also Atticus Punt storyline, which help you separate them in your head. The only downside, like in this novel, the only thing I didn't like, too many characters, like way too many characters. I would like to have a list of characters at the beginning or at the end. It would be like of a great help, because it was a lot for me. And actually I don't think that I can say any name from here, like at all. It was too many characters, maybe 30 in general, something like that. The last book I've read, I finished, let's say this, was The Santa Claus Murder by Mavis Doriel Hay. This is from British Library Crime Classics, and this is like a golden age mystery. It was first published in 1936. I liked it very much. I can't say it's the best, because actually for a strange reason. Usually logic is the main point of interest for me in mystery series, mystery novels, but here it was too much of logic. It wasn't like a logic puzzle from your newspaper, though of a length, in a book. I wanted to feel more for the characters and to know more about them. I wasn't invested emotionally in this book. That's what I'm trying to tell. I wasn't invested in any of the characters. And actually, that's what the reason I actually can't say I cared a lot about who killed this man and who from these people was a murderer, because I just didn't care for whatever reason. I can't say why. But if you can be not emotionally invested in the novel and like the logic is interesting to you, I like this book very much. It has all the things you can. It had all the things you can even imagine in murder mystery book. It has a floor plan, and it will be of a great use to you, because it's very important where each one was standing or sitting at the time of the murder. There is a list of the characters which was of a great help to me, like great help, because I was not very good in remembering names. Chapters are told from different point of views. There is one main investigator who was a friend of a family named Colonel Halstock. He's chief constable of this province or something, and also he was a friend of the family, so he has inside view of the characters in the book, but also he's investigator. But also you really need to pay attention who is telling the story in this chapter. So this is very important to pay attention to that. Sir Osmond has this family reunion every Christmas, when all his children and their spouses and his sister and all the relatives has to come to his house to celebrate Christmas. And this is a family with troubled relationships inside it, and people waiting for him to die to have his money, struggling with their lives, struggling with money, and lots of people actually wants the money from him or some kind of help. Sir Osmond ordered Santa Claus attire from the shop, and he wanted one of the guests to dress like a Santa Claus to entertain kids. So it was done on Christmas Day, I think, and after it was all done,